fans, and I'm so excited to be here in a movie theater watching Long Promised Road on the big screen and to be moderating this conversation for the film. So before we bring out our guest of honor, the legend, the legend that we are all here to see, I would love to bring out two of the gentlemen who helped make this movie, starting with Rolling Stone editor Jason Fine. And the director of Long Promised Road, Brent, what a great name, Wilson. Well, gentlemen, first of all, I just want to say congratulations. I saw this movie, let's say, 8 months ago. We had a conversation over Zoom. So to be having this conversation now in front of a theater full of people watching this movie on the big screen. First of all, Brent, starting with you, how do you feel that we're all here celebrating the man?
It's a miracle. No, it's an absolute miracle. By the way, Jason just flew in from New York. He landed about 3 hours ago. So he came out here just for this. So, that is looking forward to the dedication it took to get this film made. So yeah, no, it's fantastic to finally see it on the big screen and to hear it on the big screen, because I think to hear Brian's music in this theater was wow. To quote, I think Don Was, wow.
Well, no speaker it can really do justice to the music until you hear it on speakers like this. So when this idea came around for you to make this film, like, what was the original plan for the film, and why did it change?
Yeah, no, I don't know if it was just naive or arrogance, but I knew that I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something non-linear. I wanted to do something kind of poetic, and I wanted to do something that was going to be about the music. But I thought, I could interview Brent Wilson, and I guess that was just really, really dumb, because I tried and failed miserably. And then we were on our way to Santa Barbara, and Jason was a witness to that. I'll let him tell you a little bit of our Santa Barbara trip, but yeah, I threw up the white flag, and Jason was merciful and answered.
Cut to the chase, Brian dropped him off on the side of the road with his camera.
He was like, that was enough of this. Yeah, literally we're on our way to Santa Barbara, and he was like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't need these guys around anymore.
Well, Jason, so much of the footage of you driving around with Brian, like where did that idea originate, and what was plan B?
Well, it was really all Brent with the cameras and everything, and making that really work in the car, because it doesn't seem like you could cram, how many, 5 cameras?
5 cameras there.
Inside this, pretty small car, along with iPods and walkie-talkies and everything else. But, driving around LA with Brian is a joy. He's a guy who grew up here, who lives probably 15 miles now from where he was born. So the memories for him everywhere you drive, even just on the way here tonight, talking about driving down Pico and remembering things, that's an amazing thing to have the privilege to soak up. And I think there's also something about just, when you're in a car with someone, there's not a lot of pressure. You can kind of have a conversation, and then you can kind of take a break, and you can listen to music, you can look out the windows. And so we just kind of went with that.
Was Brian initially nah, I don't know about this? How long before he started to kind of feel comfortable with the idea of driving around, going to so many of his landmarks from his childhood in his songs, to where you could tell that he felt comfortable just talking with you about everything?
About 2 minutes.
Yeah, he dove right in. The only time I remember, and you see it in the film, he wasn't super into going to the first apartment that he moved into after he got married. That was kind of like a bummer for him. I don't know if it was the acid memories. I don't know if it was just, I don't know. But he didn't really want to be there. But most of the other places, he really just embraced it. Starting from day one, he was pretty into it.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I really loved about watching this movie is, a lot of musicians, no matter how famous they are, they don't like listening to their own music. But Brian Wilson loves listening to his own music, and he'll keep saying, play this one from 15 Big Ones, or, you know, play Please Let Me Wonder from side B of the Beach Boys Today. And like, why do you think that it is about Brian that he actually loves listening to his own music?
Well, I mean, my feeling about, and the songs that he chose to listen to were not sort of the Beach Boys' big hits. They were songs that came from a different era of the Beach Boys that people don't know as well. Late 60s, early 70s. And I really think it had a lot to do, a lot of what we talked about and a lot of what he was thinking about was his brothers, missing his brothers, the relationship with his brothers, maybe sort of things that they were never able to say to each other when they were alive. And a lot of the music that we listened to was music that really featured his brothers, singing, producing, and I think it was kind of communing with those memories and with that relationship.
Yeah, I love Brian's reaction when you wanted to play Pacific Ocean Blue from Dennis. I mean, he just, and he never even heard the whole thing. I mean, that was just really great. But Brent, like, how much time, like, what period of time did you shoot this around?
Gosh, years. Yeah, it took quite a long time. It was we had 70 hours of these guys in the car, and of course we're working around. You know, Jason had a day job. You know, he was running a magazine, so you know, Jason. You know, we tried to get 2 days here, 2 days there. Brian was out on tour, a lot of touring, so it was a lot of stop and start that kind of went to it. And yeah, we had 70 hours of them in the car. We had like 120 hours, I think, of footage, of the archival footage that Hector Lopez, the editor, and I went through and watched, and yeah, it was a mountain of material to try to kind of shape it.
And 70 hours in the car is a lot of In-N-Out burgers.
How did you go, before we turn over, I just want to how did you go from, what was it, 120 hours of archival footage, 70 hours of interviews, to 95 minutes? Brent.
Painfully. Very, very painfully. It was a tough process. You know, it's just a block of clay, you know, and all you do is just try to kind of find the shape in it. And we did, you know, Hector and I, we had a lot of conversations about what the film was going to be, and we knew that it was going to be this kind of this non-linear story, and we knew that it was going to be, very early on, we knew it was going to be kind of a buddy movie, you know, that one of the first scenes we saw was the footage of those guys, and he asks about the car, like, you know, what car is that? And we're watching that footage in the edit bay, and we just cracked up laughing. And we don't have the footage of the car, we don't see outside of the car, we don't know what they're talking about, so editorially that's not a good thing, right? But it was just so funny, and we were talking like going, God, you know what, this is kind of like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or like Lethal Weapon or something. And it was like, this is just going to be a buddy movie, and that's what we kind of decided to do.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We decided it was going to be a buddy.
Well, what do you say, since we're all feeling some pretty good vibrations right now, what do you say we bring out our guest of honor? Ladies and gentlemen, all rise, give it up for the legend, Brent Wilson.
For the undercard, right?
I want to say we talk with Brent Wilson right now and get some questions in. Hi, Brian.
Hi.
How do you feel after getting a standing ovation like that?
Good.
Feels pretty good, right?
What is it usually? Please sit down, right? After God only knows. I've got a shirt, one of my prized possessions from the crew, that says Brent Wilson, God only knows, please sit down. And it's one of my all-time prized possessions. I haven't even worn it yet.
Brian, when you were making this film, when you were driving around with Jason, like, how much fun did you have driving around LA, Southern
A lot
California?
of fun, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun?
Yeah.
What were some of the highlights, going to like photo shoots of the old Beach Boys
Restaurants,
stuff?
restaurants.
What about Nobu, Brian? Remember the sushi?
Brian, when this movie premiered back in April, we were still, doing a lot of stuff from home, a lot of the Zoom stuff.
Right.
But how excited are you for people to see this movie on the big screen?
Well, it's a big thrill for me, big thrill.
Before you came out, Brian, we were talking about how a lot of times musicians don't like to listen to their own stuff.
Right,
You do.
right.
Why do you love listening to the Beach Boys music so much?
I don't know. I just like it.
One of the highlights for me, and I think for a lot of us, was when you were listening to Pacific Ocean Blue.
Right.
Like, what was it like for you to hear Dennis's music, some of it for the first
Well, he
time?
was a good singer, yeah.
How did you like driving around LA with Jason?
Yeah, good,
Down to Malibu?
yeah.
When we did the Pacific Ocean Blues scene, Brian, you kept asking to hear it.
Right.
And we were at the deli, and I texted Jason. I was like, please don't play this for him at the deli, because I wanted to be at the house, and I wanted to be able to hear it. And so we go in, and Brian, you're sat in your chair,
Right.
and I told the camera operator, Max, I said, look, this is only gonna take about 5 minutes. And, but cut to an hour later, our poor camera guy is still standing there, as Brian wants to hear every one of those tracks on Pacific Ocean
Right.
Blue. So Max, I owe you a massage or something out there somewhere, I apologize.
Brian, there's so much music that so many of us in this room, we all have our personal favorites, and it's not necessarily like, fun or 409. Personally for me, it's side 2 of the Beach Boys Today, with songs like Please Let Me Wonder.
Right.
So what are your what's your personal favorite Beach Boys album?
I don't know. That sounds.
That sounds is good.
Not a bad choice.
What was it like for you when you got to see this movie for the first time?
That
Seeing
was a
yourself.
big trip.
What are you proud of from the post Pet Sounds, like after Pet Sounds? Like, what Beach Boys stuff are you most proud of after Pet Sounds?
Good vibrations.
Good vibrations.
It's okay. We were talking about It's Okay Tonight.
Right.
That's the song you've been singing lately.
Yeah, it's okay.
What was it like working with Brent to
Brent?
make this movie?
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had a good time, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, had a good time. It was a lot of sushi, and a lot of time at the deli,
Right.
and a lot of time listening to great music.
Right.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure making this film with you. It's been one of the honors of my life, being able to tell your story.
Okay.
Ryan, one of the treasures of this movie is you wrote a brand new song called Right Where I Belong.
Right. It's a good tune.
It's a great tune. It's a great tune, right, ladies and gentlemen? Just last question for you, Brian. How did you come to write that song, Right Where I Belong?
I don't know. Can't remember.
Well, how proud to be here with everybody watching this movie with a crowd.
It's a good feeling. Good feeling.
We're going to be heading back out on the road, right? Got some touring coming up,
Right.
and get back out on the road. I love it when Brian keeps working. It's always a pleasure to see you perform and play. So hopefully everybody gets out to
Thank you.
see some live shows too. So.
Well, we all want to thank Brent Wilson for being here tonight. Jason Fine and Brent Wilson, thank you so much for making this movie. We all love it. Make sure you check it out this weekend. It's also on demand. Everyone, if you can please stay in your seats while we exit, that would really be great. To you to finally, I mean, listen, you know, we were all talking on a Zoom call back in April, which believe me, I was very happy to do. But this is obviously so much better. What does it mean to you to finally like really release Long Promised Road to the world now?
I mean, I'm just thinking back to a time a few years ago when Brian and I just sort of wandered into the Wrecking Crew movie just on a Tuesday afternoon, just driving around. It was playing, and we sat in the movie, and I watched him watch that movie that features so much of his music. And it was really an incredible experience to be here in this theater in LA, in his hometown, with all these people who love his music and love him. For it to come full circle that way. So it's a wonderful feeling. I mean, for me, one of the things that was so important, and I think to Brent too, was for Brian to have the chance to tell his own story. Lots of people have told his stories in lots of different ways, but I don't know that Brian's really ever told it his way. And that was one of the goals that we had, and I hope we accomplished it.
Listen, I see like 350 movies a year. I'm not complaining. Okay, I love it. But the intimacy of this movie that you both captured, the three of you captured, really makes this completely separate from like a biopic or a documentary. I mean, it's very, very genuine. And what were the special moments that you were looking for when you pared it down to this to capture that intimacy?
Well, for me, it's just the moment where Brian's in the studio recording Honeycomb. It was a remarkable day. And that happened in real time, as you guys saw it. It happened just like that. We asked Brian, our producers, Teresa Page and Tim Headington. I had this vision. I wanted Brian to record with his band, right? Nobody records that way anymore. It's because it's too expensive. Nobody. They sit in front of a computer and it's one instrument at a time. But I wanted to see Brian produce. I wanted to see Brian with his band. So they indulged this crazy idea, and we told Brian, look, there's no agenda, there's no label, there's no release dates, just what do you want to record? And we gave him that freedom, and those were the songs that he picked: Long Promised Road, It's Okay, and then this song Honeycomb, which I'd never even heard of, and I think it's Jimmy Rogers or something. And so he rolls in, with Jason, and he sits down at the piano, and what you see in the film happens almost in real time. And he just takes over his band, and he just starts producing, and he just starts to just have that moment where he's just so zoned in. And I told this story, but I started to cry. I started to tear up, and I started to kind of look away and kind of wipe away tears. Nobody could see me, and I looked over, and Jason was crying, and then the next guy was crying, and then the next guy was crying. And it was like this salty drip at the end, and he was crying, and it was just a miracle of a moment. So I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
It's really cool to see Brian, in his element in the studio. I mean, and it really is. That's the way that it happened, and he really, when he goes in the studio, he's such in his comfort zone, and the way he hears instruments and the way he arranges the instruments in real time is really part of what's the magic of his music, and he still does that. That's still how he works, and so that was really special.
But the other thing I thought was really special was just your relationship with Brian while you were driving around. I mean, you could tell that he was being completely honest in the moment with you. How long did it take him to, or the both of you, to kind of get into that zone where it was without a net?
Brian and I have been talking, and I've been reporting and writing stories about Brian for a long time. And the very first time, which was in the 90s, I went to his house. I was nervous as hell. I ring the doorbell, and someone lets me in, and we start talking, and about 5 or 10 minutes into the interview, he just left. He just wandered out of the room. And I didn't really know what I was supposed to do. Was I supposed to leave? Was I supposed to wait? So I waited for a while. I was getting anxious, and I followed sort of voices that I heard and ended up in the kitchen. And Brian was in the kitchen opening the refrigerator. And I said, "Hey, Brian, I'm still here." And he said, "Oh, really sorry about that. Sometimes I just get scared." And I said, "Oh, well, what scared you?" He said, "Well, a lot of things scare me." I said, "Like what?" And he said, "Well, like What a Fool Believes by the Doobie Brothers. Do you know that song?" And I don't know, something just sort of popped then, and we sort of broke through the ice, and we've been sort of talking, I think, in a more sort of open and casual way since then. So in the film, I mean, that's sort of how it rolls, you know, that's sort of the vibe. And like I said earlier, I think it's really a natural place to talk in a car. Yeah, so that worked well.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about being in a car, you just let your guard down. You know, Brent, I want to ask you, you know, with all that footage and with all the archival footage, when did you start to find the movie?
It's funny. I wrote it down in the calendar. It took us it took us almost 3 months before we even started to edit. And I remember writing it down in my calendar the day that Hector and I started to edit, and I was so happy that it was like, okay, now finally, after sitting in this edit bay and just watching footage, that we could start to edit. But as far as when we found the movie, I don't know, probably about 10 minutes ago, I guess. I don't know. I think we may still be looking for it. Yeah, it's a never-ending process, and you just see, I could make it better tomorrow, for sure.
I would love to open to the audience because, I mean, this is a great opportunity. You had the first question right there, yes.
First of all, Brent, that's a tremendous poster. It's really cool.
Yeah, these guys did an amazing job, didn't they? Yeah, fantastic job.
For Jason, as a super educated observer, how do you think at this point in time Brian views Mike, and how do you think Mike views Brian?
So the question is, at this point in time, how do you think Brian views Mike Love and Mike views Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spent time with them together since 2012, but what I had known about it going into them, would have led me to believe they were enemies or something because of all the lawsuits and all the things. But when I saw them together, they acted like cousins. They acted like friends. They acted like guys who had rich history and respect for each other, and I think that's how they think of each other, with a lot of love.
Next question right here, in the mask. Yeah, you.
The scene that really stuck out to me, and I love the whole film, but what maybe one of the most profound scenes I've seen in the film in quite some time was when watching Brian process that Jack Riley had passed away. I'm just curious if, obviously you didn't know that, so would you have approached that any different? I thought it was a wonderful moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said it. I mean, I didn't know he didn't know, but I also didn't know it would mean that much to him. I mean, I wouldn't have brought it up that way had I known. That was, and also I couldn't really see his reaction because I was driving, so I wasn't aware of how emotional he was either. So it was, that was hard.
It was tough. It was tough to watch when we saw the footage, and I remember when we parked at the house and Jason got out of the car and he just literally kind of like fell into my arms and was like, and hugged me and goes, "Oh my God, I didn't know he didn't know," and because we that was it. I mean, we were done for the day. We decided to go home, and we weren't going to do any more shooting, and so we just went back to the house, and yeah, and I think it underscores part of the theme, one of the themes of the film, and certainly Brian's life, which is loss. And it's just a large, it represents, I guess, in that 93 minutes of a film, what it's like for Brian every day. Loss has been a big part of his life, and I think that's how he sees it with his brothers, and obviously with Jack, and certainly with his father, and it's it was a tough moment to see, and the fact that Jason was I think just so open about it, and Brian allowed us to have it in the film. It's really
absolutely. Just got the next question. Let's go over here. You in the mask.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Who's got a question?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you have a question.
Please.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
What guided, the balance between all of the material you got from such a eventful life and the conversations you had within the car? What guided, knowing what to include and what you actually put on?
So the question is, what guided you with what you finally included in the final movie?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, and and it just kind of at this point kind of comes down to I I'm an audience member. I am the audience. I'm a Brian Wilson fan, and I'm a fan of documentaries, and I just try to kind of put myself in the audience seat. But one of the things that I really wanted to do with the film was I wanted it to speak to Brian fans, people that have been fans their whole lives of Brian and follow Brian's career and know everything about Brian. But I wanted it to be able to speak to maybe somebody who's a Nick Jonas fan, and Nick Jonas is in this movie, so my goodness, why is he talking about Brian Wilson? So I'm a big Nick Jonas fan, so I'm going to watch this movie now, and so I wanted to be able to speak to that fan as well. So it was just trying to find that balance of this is going to be something new for fans that know everything, and then also introduce something to a new generation of fans. And also wanted to have something new for the year. That was always really important too. Wanted to have new music, so we went through all the Brian Wilson archives and dug out some new music, and of course Brian recorded new music, so that was important to me. I wanted to hear new music.
Okay, next question is over here in the green hat.
Jason absolutely loved everything you had to say with Brian. Your love, everything with him, the gentleness was incredible, came across beautifully. My big question is, why the Beverly Glen Deli?
Why the Beverly Glen Deli?
What was the typical order for Brian?
Why the Beverly Glen Deli, and what was the typical order for Brian?
That's a very astute question. Beverly Glen Deli is his spot, or it was. He didn't want to go there today, so maybe it's not a spot anymore. But for both of us, it was usually a Cobb salad, mine with no bacon. He would also then often have a soft serve ice cream, which I think you also see in there. So that was the main go-to, but sometimes he'd have a hamburger.
He went right for that ice cream. We all noticed.
It's funny because I think too, they when you're there with them, they treat him so well there, right? Like they just kind of let him do his thing, and he'll come in and go in and out pretty quickly. Jason will test.
He eats really fast. He also likes to order for whoever he's eating with, so he'll have ideas about, if you go to the Beverly Glen Deli with Brian, he'll have ideas about what you should get.
I love the Vanna White moment. That was really awesome. Who's got a question? Let's try somebody in the back here if you got a question up there. Yes, you just raised your hand. So nice and loud, please.
Sure, I can project. First of all, I just wanted to say, you covered so many issues of Brian's life in such a short amount of time. I'm kind of mind-boggled. I feel like I want to watch it again as much as I already knew. How did you decide, did you already know which parts of the heavy stuff that you wanted to mention, and just how briefly? Obviously, there's a lot that's been talked about, but I just personally wanted to say I really appreciated the way you dealt with mental illness, and how for some people it's just the way it is, and yet it's so amazingly difficult, and for Brian to do as much as he's done is amazing to me, and thank you for reminding me of that.
No, very much so.
I mean, to me, Brian's story is all about courage, and the courage to deal with what he has to deal with, and also be such a creative person and a public person. And it's not easy for him, and that was an important thing to both Brent and I to convey, that this guy, goes on tour. I mean, there was one of the things I remember was 180 shows that one year when we were filming, and he goes and he told me he's writing new songs today. I mean, he works, and he's not living, in the past, off past hits. He's making new music. He's going on tour, trying new songs. And that takes a tremendous amount of effort and courage, and we wanted to express that.
Got time for one more question. All right, okay, you and the beard.
I just want to reiterate what everyone said. It was really a beautiful film. You see a lot of kind of cringe-worthy interviews with Brian, but it's clear that you very good. So I think everyone probably appreciates that. My question was, speaking of Nick Jonas, how did you guys kind of pick your celebrity cast of musicians? I'm sure everyone's lining up, but just were they like your buddies or something?
Yeah, how did you come to interview the people you interviewed?
Bruce, my buddy.
Yeah. Bruce and I was at Bruce's house. We were having beers, and I said, "Bruce, I'm flying over to Elton next week, and we're having a barbecue." No. But no, it's an excellent question. We talked about from the very beginning. I didn't want redundancy, right? I wanted to have some kind of diversity in the opinions that we're going to speak to. And so it felt like, Bruce was an American icon, and he hasn't spoken a lot about, Brian. But I suspected he was a fan. I was right. He was a huge fan. He talks about Elvis. He talks about Bob Dylan. He doesn't talk too much about, but he couldn't wait. He immediately said yes. Then you had Elton, who is a British icon. Then you get somebody like Gustavo Dudamel, who's from South America. He's from Venezuela and is the world's most famous conductor. Conducts the Paris Symphony. And then you get Jim James, who is kind of the king of cool and indie. And then you get Nick Jonas, and Nick Jonas is another generation, and he grew up with two young brothers, making pop music. And then in his 20s tried to kind of break out of that pop sound and make it adult music. And I thought that's an interesting perspective. So the idea was try to kind of collect as many different and varying opinions. And the idea being that if you're kind of flipping the channels around and you saw Bruce Springsteen, Nick Jonas, Gustavo Dudamel, and Linda Perry together, and you would go, what in the world do these people have in common? It would be Brian Wilson. And then
Linda Perry was amazing.
And then Linda Perry and Don. What I love about Linda and Don was we were looking for who are the two foremost producers, who is out there making incredible music as producers, so that we could just get them on camera going, as Don says, I don't know how you do this. and I thought it was really important, if you've seen, heard Linda's songs, you've heard Don's music and stuff, and for those guys who go, I have no idea how you do this, and they don't. And I thought that was important. So that was it. Just diversity, adding it up. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, so now that you've seen the film, please spread the word about Long Promised Road. And how do you do that? Obviously, you go on social media. So go on Twitter, go on Instagram, go on Facebook. You in the back, if you're still using MySpace, that's totally cool. But long live Brian Wilson, Jason Fine, Brent Wilson. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.